This right here, look at her. Delicious. Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Leja, you can call me Lay, and today we're doing a little bit of a setting change just to see if we like it better, if the lighting's better, I don't know. But anyways, hi, how are you? If you don't know me, I've been working on my channel and on my content creator journey and really just focusing on lifestyle design content. Last week we did our vision boards, which is so important as the year is coming to an end, it's wrapping up. So we need to be on top of our things, you know, to prepare. But today I wanted to focus on time. Because while it is beautiful and perfect when you finally have your goals down, the vision down, that you know your core values and everything like that, and you've done the introspective work, but now we have to talk strategy. Okay, now you have the vision, how are we gonna do it? And it also comes really down to time, because while in our lives there are a lot of different aspects that may contribute of how we have to spend our time. Me being 22, I know that this is the freest I am in my life right now. I also am not working to really A, figure out what type of career I want, and B, take a risk and pursue something that I always wanted to do. I don't have kids, I don't have a high level of responsibility, so I'm gonna be full disclosure with that when I talk about this, because I know that time management is hard, especially when you're working, it's demanding, especially now that many jobs decide, okay, now that times are changing, hence why people are going back to the office space more, whether it's like a hybrid situation or full-time. And with that comes the thought of, okay, commuting, and if you have kids, you have to think about how that works, especially if they're young and have to go to daycare and stuff like that. So with lifestyle design, I want to make sure I just give a level of advice that I think can range from whatever your situation is, and really just talk about it. To start off, let's talk resources. As a girl who likes to read, a lot of this is going to be inspired by things that I've read that I think would be a good resource for you, because even though I am going to talk about it a lot this YouTube video, I still recommend reading it for yourself, because there's such a difference between hearing about the content and actually engaging in the content. 4 books that I think really like help me with my time management and stuff like that is, number 1, right now I'm reading the 12-week year, and I first heard about the 12-week year from another YouTuber. In my time in college, I was trying to do my best, test out like how would it work for me. I feel like the circumstances are different and I want to try again actually applying the 12-week year. And also at the time I didn't read it, which is why I state this in the beginning that whatever I talk about today, I personally think that you should still go and engage in the resources and see how it processes in your brain, because hearing her explain it, it was like, oh, that's interesting, I should try that. But then I started reading the content. I did not finish the book yet. I'm like halfway through it, I would say, and I'm listening to it as an audiobook, so it's definitely a different aspect than actually reading it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I feel like some things that I listened to today, it really like put things into perspective, because while she focused on like certain aspects of the book, like mainly the part of it being the 12-week year, so it's no longer like, it's not necessarily looking at it as quarterly, you look at it as the 12 weeks being a year, and that's it, and that's like the motivation of it. periodization, I think is the word they used when talking about it. I also listened to other books or read them. For a long time, Atomic Habits, that is like my down bitch. Like, that is always the book I will recommend to people, because I read that in 2021. It's still something that's like one of the self-help books that I took deep notes on. Like, actually, like, I have it in my journal. That's how much I liked the book, that I went back and read the book twice and literally took notes on it, like, in my journal. You can't really like see it, it's not focusing, but hold on, I don't know if you can see it now, but this is basically, yeah, that's where I have my notes. It just really put things into perspective, like having a behavioral change. And with the vision board already being made, and hopefully when you did visualization and stuff like that, it was more identity focused instead of outcome focused, which is really important. I did forget to mention that, so my bad. We done? Another book is like Get Your Shit Together by Sarah Knight. It's kind of like a controversial book because a lot of people felt like it was like kind of repetitive in the self-help space, but I found her perspective interesting. And I do think, like, when you're on your self-help journey, that it's really important to engage in different types of perspectives on self-help, because you never know what will actually work for you. Some people are like love and light with their self-help journey, their development journey, their productivity and stuff like that, but not everyone will function the same. And maybe like people give the same advice, like wake up early, do this, do that, and for some people that works, but on a biological level that won't work for everyone. Everyone has different like chronotypes, everyone has different life circumstances, so that is why I am completely adamant on just creating this style of content. What she did was she kind of used a kind of like a metaphor throughout it, with like Alvin and the Chipmunks pretty much. And I thought the way she put things into perspective was very cool. It really got me motivated, and it really pushed me to even like pursue me doing like YouTube and stuff like that and go after the life I want. So that is a recommendation, but she kind of calls herself the anti-guru because her content is not necessarily like all light and love. And some people may not receive her content well, but some people might. So the last book that I was like thinking about when I was coming up with this idea was The 4-Hour Workweek. I'm gonna be honest, I did not finish the book. I'm like halfway through the book because I've just been kind of like scattered with my reading list, because there's some things I wanted to finish, like topics I wanted to educate myself about, but also wanting to engage with some fiction, and I just made myself confused. I'm gonna be honest, this is why I have to personally read one book at a time. I do not know how people read like multiple books and like not get overwhelmed by it. The 4-Hour Workweek is another one I recommend because I felt so interested, because the mindset presented in that book about like the new rich and stuff like that, and how he made things automatic, I just found it fascinating. And the book does talk about like outsourcing and like stuff like that. So I think if you're an entrepreneur, it's a very good thing to look at, because what he talks about is like kind of like how you save time and how to like make systems. So another good book. I just didn't personally finish it, not because I didn't like it, but more so because I didn't have the time. Same with the 12-Hour Workweek. I started it and I'm still reading it actively right now as an audiobook, and I'm trying to finish it, but I just knew I would not finish it before this episode. But I did take notes on things I did like from it so far. So one key thing he talks about is a 12-week year. He says that when we think we have more time, we kind of put things off. So when people make a goals for the year that they put things off and kind of forget about it, and then towards like the end of the year, that's when they're like, oh, let me get my shit together on this. And yeah, because the urgency is gone when it is 12 months. So what they basically said is, okay, you're basically in a year, you're gonna have like 4 years. Every 12 weeks, you have 4 years. But it's also like their execution is very interesting because they talk about visualization, which I mentioned before. But one thing that they did include in their visualization process that I didn't include in mine is they wanted you to look at it from long-term, midterm, and short-term, which in this case will be the 12 weeks. Midterm would be about 3 years, and long-term is either 5 years, 10 years, or even 15 years. I tried to actually do this exercise today, and I realized I cannot think 15 years in the future, but I know what I want in at least 10 years. And that's also another point of defining a timeline for yourself, which I do have a book recommendation for that one too. It is Defining Decade by, now I think it's Meg Jay, but I read that book while I was like going through, I guess, kind of like a meltdown about what I want to do post-graduation, because I was like so stressed out to a point where it made me unhealthy that I didn't know what I was doing once I graduated. I felt behind. I felt like, actually, I feel a lot more healthy in my circumstances, and I'm not putting too much pressure, because the reason why I felt so much pressure was comparison. So that's why it's so important to make your own timeline, visualize it, because even if people are doing this, that, and the third, and you feel like you're behind, you're not actually behind. You just feel behind. And the thing is, they might not have the same goals as you. We take so much time worrying about things that just doesn't matter. We should be focusing on what we want in our own timeline instead of what is people doing now and comparing ourselves. We don't know. We probably don't even have the same goals. Even if they were in the same major as you, at the end of the day, it's like, I did my major, but part of me didn't even feel right being in the major, and that the topics I was learning was interesting, yes, but it's not, I wasn't sure if it was really something I wanted to pursue as a career. I did feel envious from people because I felt like, because I wasn't getting the internships, one, I felt like there was something wrong with me, and two, that I was kind of behind. If I took that time instead and put it towards things I knew I actually wanted but I was afraid to want because it sounded crazy, it sounded ridiculous, but those were my own limiting beliefs, and I let it stop me because I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, when really there is no right or wrong way. But I digressed on that statement. Now, after I tried the exercise, one thing I would suggest is putting the long term first, however long term you can see into the future, and then based on your long term, breaking that down and going lower and lower and closer to what you want to do, and that's how you could structure it. So if you didn't do that in your, from the last video, or like you were waiting for this video, you can break it down that way. On to the next things, like the things they talk about in this, because essentially the book is about creating an execution system so you can get the results. But they say basically one thing that like kind of like hit hard was when they said results are just confirmation, but greatness starts when you decide to start. So I was like, that kind of ate, you know? And then they kind of list the 5 parts of like the system they created, which was, the first one is visualization, second part is planning, the third part is process control, fourth part is measurements, and the fifth part, of course, is time use. The book kind of talks about a lot of things. One thing that did stand out to me is like the number of goals they say to set to focus on in those 12 weeks. They say 1 to 3 goals to focus on. So I kind of was like, okay, yeah. Because when I suggested my vision board, I think I suggested 5 short-term goals and 1 long-term goal, right? And I still stand by that as an ideology. But what you can do is decide like which goals are worth like putting in for the first time you're trying for this. Because for me personally, like I said, like with my desired appearance goal, that was super important for me. We're back rolling. Hold on. Let me just take a sip of my chai. It's so good. That is so good. So out of my personal goals, I said that I'm most comfortable talking about 1, 2 of them maybe. I know out of my goals, the ones I want to prioritize the most is 1, my desired appearance. Why? Because I do think working on the things that make me, I wouldn't say necessarily make me confident, because confidence goes deeper than just your appearances, and I just want to make that so clear. But it's also about an energy that you kind of put out. I want to feel good in my skin. It's not so much of the results that make me feel good, but it's the fact that I'm doing all that I can to feel good. But also my other goal obviously is to pursue content creation, which is exactly what I'm doing. And honestly, I think going into the year, like those 2 will mainly be my goals. And eventually I would want to branch out into my other goals. But because that my other goals also require a certain skill that I need to develop, and a certain energy and a certain mindset I need to develop, I think it's more important to work on the things I know I can manage right now. Choose 1 to 3 of your goals, right, that you already created. Then from there, what you do after that is you come up with strategies. Like, that's when you kind of think, it goes from like, what is the goals to how are you gonna do it. You come up with about 5 strategies for each of the 1 to 3 goals. 3 goals, you'll have 15 strategies, 5 for each. 2 goals, 10 strategies total, 5 for each. 1 goal, 5. What they kind of suggest is kind of like creating a scoreboard for yourself that you kind of like rate yourself on a weekly level. So basically how it's set up is like you have the tactics you have are things you're supposed to do weekly, and then that gets broken down into what you do daily. It's just kind of like a functionality to kind of like create a process for yourself. Also, it kind of shows like how you measure yourself. Along with that, you should make sure to have like review questions to see how well you obtained your goal. One thing that stood out to me with the book by Sarah Knight is she says like there is a to-do list and a must-do list. And I felt like that was an interesting way to put things into perspective, because sometimes we do things, it's not necessarily what we're supposed to be prioritizing. So make sure to make a to-do list, and that is kind of like where you can brain dump, right? And then from there, another method, I actually learned this in one of my jobs, so you know what? Slay, like I'm using information from my job. Eisenhower's box, and I'm probably just gonna put something on the screen, like maybe like right here. That can help you with what should go on your to-do list and what should go on your must-do list. The reason why this matters is because sometimes we do too much. And this is also helps like a system of your productivity, which helps your time management. With that being said, if something is urgent and important, you do it yourself. If something is urgent but not important, you can delegate it to another person. if something is not urgent but also important, you also get to schedule it, decide when to do it. And if it's not urgent, not important, delete it. Just delete it. You don't need to do it if it's not urgent nor important. Okay? So now we're working with our productivity systems. And if you want me to dive deeper into like ways to come up with a strategy, please like comment and let me know, or better yet, just like subscribe, like, comment, share, so I know like if I'm putting this content out that it's actually like useful or something like that. Because no matter what, even though like this is something so new to me, and obviously like there are people with larger audiences than me, that doesn't mean I'm gonna stop trying, okay? Because I do have faith in my advice, and I do believe like I really want to help people this way, and that something about doing this is just what I'm called to do. So yeah. I should mention this since I tried the 12-week year last year. Something I did was to plan it, I kind of like calculated how much a year, quote unquote, would be. So in terms of 2023, it was like January 1st to March 25th. Second year was April 2nd to June 24th. Third year was July 2nd to September 23rd. And my fourth year was October 1st to December 23rd. Then between those, because as you notice, like there's like a weekly gap between each of those, where I like to call them hibernation periods. Those are the weeks that are between the years. Those are essentially planning weeks. Those are weeks that I take to rest, gather my resources. So in 2023, my hibernation periods was March 26th to April 1st, June 25th to July 1st, September 24th to September 30th, December 24th to December 30th. I think that's important to know, because another thing mentioned in the book is the fact like we need breaks and we need time that we're really like present in what we're doing. And that's where most people make the mistake, is because we're so go 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 and we try to multitask, and that ruins the quality of everything we're doing. I talked about this in a podcast episode before, because like I said, I use my podcast pretty much to talk the most about mindset work and things that I've been doing. But another method that I made myself, because I have never seen anyone talk about this, but as an introvert, this is something that it was really important to me, and I had to think about it this way because I was still going to school at the time. So I like to call this, and this is how I organize my day, on periods and off periods. On periods and off periods. So at the time, I wrote that my on periods were 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and then my off period was 10:01 p.m. to 5:59 a.m. Let me explain. So basically, this is why it's important to look at your days a very specific way, because what I called during that time on periods was basically, by definition, it means that I have to be subjected to other people. This means either it's an interaction such as socializing, working on projects, fulfilling labor responsibilities, or indirect engagement, like if I have to like go out and like be around other people. So basically in this time of day, it's not solely about my wants, though sprinkle those in as like, so sprinkle those times in as boosters, but essentially so you're less subjected to burnout throughout the day. But it's basically a time of discipline and pursuing your responsibilities. Those are your on periods, okay? Although some of those will be aligned with your needs too, and not just your wants. Off period is a time of rest and recharge. And I wrote this, okay. So by definition that I wrote is off period is a time of rest and recharge. Recharging isn't necessarily being alone, but dependent on the person, it could look different for the individual. It can be putting your phone away, reading, journaling, talking to a loved one, cuddling, cleaning, etc. This is also crucial to acknowledge how much time you spend sleeping in this 8-hour period. Again, some people can function with less rest, even though we should be getting 8 hours, but let's be real, not everyone gets 8 hours. And even like on my less stress-free times, like sometimes I get like 5 hours, 6 hours, but not because like I have anywhere to go, but specifically because I just can't stay asleep. This is another thing. This is something I learned, but it's basically breaking your days into quarters, like quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. But there is a specific reason why we do this. So in this case of my example, I said that quarter 1 was 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Quarter 2 was 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Quarter 3 was well, technically 2:01, but like 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. and quarter 4 was 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Because essentially how the time goes is like either time that I spend commuting. At the time I was commuting a lot. So the reason why I decided to want to break my days down into quarters, because sometimes when you don't live up to your expectations, that's what keeps you in a slump. So this was more of a mindset thing. So let's say that the morning is not good for you. Like let's say like you're commuting, something bad happened, someone spilled something on you, or the train was too loud, or it was like delayed or something, whatever. A lot of people would let that start of the day bring them down and it carry those negative emotions throughout the day, and then when it comes down to it, they would say like, oh, I had such a bad day. You know what I mean? Which, okay, your emotions are valid, but let's put things to perspective, babe. If let's say that happens like at 7 or 8 in the morning, and it's like your boss yells at you or something, and all that happens between the hours of 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., right? You had a bad early morning, you know? You had a bad early morning. That doesn't mean you had a bad day. Because you know what? Later on in the day, you could get home and end up working on your business, which you didn't think you could do, but because you stopped like the negative emotions and pushed through, you still had something, you still did something very important to you. Or like, let's say like you overslept and you had such plans to get so much done during the weekend because you can't do it during the week, right? Okay, and now it's like you wake up, instead of waking up at like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. like you wanted to, you wake up at like 1 p.m. So basically quarter 1 and quarter 2 done. But in quarter 3 and quarter 4, you could still make your bed if that makes you feel productive, and you could still do some of the tasks that you wanted to set out to do, so the day is not wasted. But a lot of people would be like, oh, well, I already wasted half of my day. Or let's say you got up early but stayed on your phone for a long period, and then you decide like, oh, I should just keep being on my phone and keep participating in this habit and rotting away instead of doing what I said I was going to do because it's already past the time. So when you start to look at time as something that if something happens, it doesn't define the rest of your day, then you're able to do more with that mindset. Everything we covered, some resources that you should check out. We covered the 12-week year and talked about how it's an execution plan. And using the 12-week year, that we still need weeks for relaxation, to recharge, to reassess, and check in so we know what to do for the next set. How to do things daily, which is creating a must-do list and a to-do list. Take things from your to-do list and see what's important by using the Eisenhower method of do, decide, delegate, or delete. And lastly, we covered mindset work that can help you kind of like recenter of how you see time and how to refocus your day. Yeah, that's what we did. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.